Hello and welcome to Geek First Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geek First Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Harcasser, Dylan Muss, and I have with me the Clown Prince of Podcast, Travis. I don't know the last time we've all just used our regular nicknames. It's kind of nice to do that, but how are you doing tonight, Travis?
Good. Like I said, I don't know if this was on air, off air, but there was one point where I went to go use this is like I'd say like my OG nickname, and I forgot it for a second. I'm like, what is it? So like, I gotta start using it more. But I'm glad to be back. I was supposed to be back last week, so obviously it worked out for you because the Nintendo Direct ended up dropping.
Yes.
But I was deadly sick, so thank you for Kirkland to kind of shuffling with me, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about some news and finally some Midnight Suns. But I'm doing well.
Yeah, no, it actually worked out even better than that because there was a couple Midnight Suns things that have happened since in the last couple of days. So we actually got a little bit more for our main topics. That works well. But
I'm
this
glad my
week's
body
episode-
failed us for Sidequest.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Perfect
Yeah.
timing. But no, this episode is going to be fun. We've really got a Sony-centric and a Marvel-centric episode. So two obviously very Travis-related things. So it's going to be perfect. But just a few plugs to get out of the way. Make sure to check out that Patreon to get episodes early and ad-free, such as finally the first episode of the Arcane Retrospective
Oh, there you go.
is up there now. And now, a lot of people are going to see Arcs Fatalis, Arcane Retro, and be like, what does this even mean?
That was me.
Most people don't know what Arcs Fatalis is, but I urge you, please check out the episode. It's a very fun discussion with me, Kirkland, and Dante. And even the first 30 minutes is not even really about Arcs. It's kind of just about who the studio is and their history and stuff like that. So I think for people who don't even know what's going on with the Arcane Retro, hopefully that first 20, 30 minutes is a good just way to inform you as to why we're doing this. Because, yeah, it's not like the highest tier, most popular developer, but they're making just amazing games and always have, and it's very fun to finally be jumping into those games. So, yeah, once again, Patreon. The first episode is up now, and the second one should be up in the next week or two. And the main feeds will hit in March sometime, I think, is when I'm planning for right now.
Okay, March. Okay. Was that the first Kirkland Dante cast as well?
Yeah, it was the first time Dante has casted with any of the just standard Geek First members. I've had him on an episode with Saris before, an episode with Cooper before, but never with any of you guys. So it was fun to finally mix those two worlds. And yeah, I think it was a nice trifecta. It worked well. So it'll be fun when you join us on Prey later on in the Arcane Retro. What else? Next week's episode of SideQuest is going to be the Hogwarts Legacy review, and all four of us, me, Travis, Taylor, and Kirkland, are all playing. We all have been playing a lot, and we still have another few days, so it'll be a very hefty review, I'll say. So yeah, check that out next week, and if you have any questions, topics you want to throw at us for that, do it, YouTube or join our Discord. That's a good place. I always see that stuff. Just tag me on there, and I'll add it to my show notes and all that stuff. But that's going to be very fun. But we're not going to be talking about that today, except for Travis. Give me your just one sentence thoughts on the game. A little appetizer for the fans for next week.
Ooh, one sentence thought, like the
I
elevator
didn't prompt you on
pitch.
this, so it's very much off the cuff sort of thing.
Fan fulfillment. That's what I'll give
Okay.
you there.
All right.
There you go.
Very short sentence, but
2
we'll
words.
take it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
What do you think of fan fulfillment?
And a moose boosh. I
Yeah.
love it. We're also reviewing Last of Us on a weekly basis. We're going to talk about Last of Us a little bit later on. So all that is good to go. Any other shout-outs from you? I guess the main feeds, we got Ant-Man review this week.
Yeah, I guess we do. Yeah. Just
Pooh,
hasn't
Blood,
really
and Honey. You and Taylor are going to be watching that, right? So
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that. Yeah, and then if you're a patron, just go over Golden Geeks every day. There's a category dropping to go
Yes,
vote, so you can go over there. That's a month-long process, and the winners will be announced next month. I think will be the first week of March. But yeah, go do that. But yeah, no, I think that's everything.
cool. So I shouted this out last week, but now that you're here, I got to bring it up again, which is that the first two games from the video game draft have come out now.
Yes.
Hogwarts Legacy, which I didn't check. I didn't check these numbers today, but I wrote them in my notes like from a week or two ago. But Hogwarts Legacy sitting at 86. That's Kirkland's. But you have shot up right into first place early on here with Dead Space Remake at 88. How do you feel about that? A good start to the year?
Good, because I feel like not everyone poo-pooed the pick, but I think everyone was kind of surprised how high I picked it, and that I even picked it. But I just had a good feeling. I don't know why. I didn't even have that many previews. I just kind of thought that it's kind of what I hope happens to KOTOR, that it's a very popular title that people liked, and you have to nail this remake. And if you don't, it kind of kills everything. Now, there's already talks like, oh, there's going to be more probably, blah, blah, blah. So it's like the sales well. And I guess at some point, I'll probably try it before the end of the year. I'm excited to get to because the first one I missed, and all I hear is great things. All I hear is it's as good as the first one. It improves upon it. So I was pretty happy that one worked out, because it was a remake. Could have went the other way, but I'm happy to have the lead. This might be the only time I get the lead this year, but I'm happy to have it right now. I guess I got Tears of Kingdom coming up.
That's a big one. Yeah,
I'll probably have the lead for like a good little bit, but after that, the rest of them are a bit more Wild Wild West. So I'm happy, and honestly, I'm not surprised. We'll talk about it next week, but I am. I think Hogwarts was also a bit of a gamble, because you never know how that would have went, and I think it worked out good enough for Kirkland. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that was either your second or third round pick. So the fact that you still have maybe another pick or two, obviously Tears of the Kingdom, I forget what the other ones are.
I think this was second. I think it was because I was going for some early titles. Yeah.
So well, that's good then if your second round pick is nailing it. And I think that is the highest reviewed Dead Space game ever. So I mean, it was definitely I don't know if it was a huge gamble, it was a slight gamble, but it definitely paid off for you. So good job there. So one quick also just kind of check in from last week when me and Kirkland talked about the Nintendo Direct. Did you check out that Direct at all, Travis? Or you seen highlights from it?
I still haven't. I'm behind on so much stuff, and that's why this weekend was a crapshoot, because I just sunk a lot of hours in Hogwarts Legacy. So no, I've seen all the highlights and everything like that. I think I saw like a snippet of the Zelda stuff, but kind of like you guys talked about, there's not much to really dissect there. And that's one that I will play eventually, because I did like Breath of the Wild, but there's so many games out there, and I like it to an extent, so I'm not rushing to get it. And I thought from the announcements wise, it was a good solid direct for this year. This definitely felt like let's give the roadmap for this year, not one of those like in the next 3 years you're getting this. I know all the Metroid fans keep being disappointed with each direct, because they got the remasters, but like everyone's waiting for Prime 4, and I just feel like every time I see like, oh, this is gonna be the one, right? And it's been I don't know how long since we got that announcement, so I feel like those were the two things that people are just excited for Zelda and disappointed with the lack of Metroid. I'm just sitting here waiting for another Star Fox game. So
yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I saw the opposite side of things, where people obviously want Prime 4, but they were very happy with a few things about the Prime remaster. One, that it's like looks really good. It's a lower price, and I even saw too this was like just has really good accessibility options, which is something that Nintendo notoriously absolutely sucks at. They are the opposite of PlayStation, where sometimes their options menu literally has like two things in it. It's like gamma and like music volume. Like it's pretty much, it's like you can't even like remap any buttons or anything. It's such a mess, and I feel like that remaster is going above and beyond. It seems like it's really great. I haven't picked it up yet. I don't know when or if I will, but I don't know. I feel like what I've seen is that people are pretty happy. They have something pretty quality to hold them over a bit, I guess, until Prime 4.
Well, yeah, that's it, where I don't think it's just negative. I just feel like every tweet I saw was, I was really hoping for Prime 4, but I'll take this. People are still happy this existed. Like, it was still good news. It was like a bad news, good news situation, But, I was just surprised it was dropping, because did it have a date before, or no? Wasn't that
No, it was a shadow drop, and they dropped it that day, so
which is very impressive, and it's impressive that it's not like a bad shadow drop, like, oh yeah, it's out now and stuff, and I'll get around to that at some point, hopefully, because I up until GameCube, which I guess it jumps to Wii and Wii U and stuff. There wasn't too many Metroids, but I remember plugging lots of hours into Metroid. I feel like that's one of those games
into Prime or the
Prime. Okay, I feel like that was like early on, sure, but Prime, I feel like that was a constant rental at Blockbuster, to the point where it's like, why didn't I or my parents just buy it? But at that point, I just remember that's one of those, probably if I had to make a list of top 10 like first person games, that's a game that's first person that I genuinely loved. So
nice, cool. Yeah. So what I wanted to shout out from that direct is they announced that the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, they're rolling that out onto the Switch Online. Yeah. And this was like one of my most hyped things, especially because I just love the Game Boy Advance so much. But I wanted to show out a couple of the games that I've played through that. First of all, a couple of Wario games. Like as much as Wario, I've played him in sports games and in kart races and stuff, I have never just played any Wario games in any capacity. Yeah. So it was fun to go and check some of those out. First of all, I checked out WarioWare Mega Micro Games, I think is what it's called. This is the Game Boy Advance, like the first WarioWare game. I feel like for some reason I have the memory that like Emily's a big WarioWare fan.
She's a massive WarioWare fan. Yeah, I don't know if she ever gone the handheld ones, but I feel like she must have probably when she was younger. Yeah, Wario's her guy. And that was one of the first games we played together when we started dating, was the Wii. Cool. And it actually was kind of fun. Like the Wii version of WarioWare is really good. And then there's other ones. But yeah, she likes all those. They're very they're not my type of games. I liked playing them in that sense with somebody. They're not a game that I would drop a bunch of money on, but they're very creative, and I love just that they are. You're in the sick mind of Wario if it's done right. So there's something I don't know, kind of just. I don't know what it is about there's a charm. That's all I'll say. There's a sleazy charm to them. You know?
It knows what it's going for, and like some of these just really weird, really bizarre imagery that they're using, or these micro games that are just so strange. But yeah, I mean, I'm really loving it. I've played so much of it now. I think I've got through like all the main levels, and then there's like higher difficulties for each of them. But yeah, I mean, so many games have mini games, but not many games have micro games. Like everything in here truly are like you're getting like 3 seconds of gameplay here, and that's such a fun part of it. Where just your reaction time of like, okay, what is this game? How do I read it as quick as possible, and then react and do the thing correctly? And that kind of trial and error. But then sometimes you just instinctively know what to do, even though the games are very strange. It's really cool, really creative game, and just I love the art of it and the definitely I don't know how to describe it well, but it's just like the story element of it too is very interesting. Where each time you like pick one of these characters and they have their set of mini games, and they're kind of themed, but they have like this random like 30-second cutscene of this character's story, and none of it has any words or anything, and they don't really make a lot of sense. But I feel like that's part of it. It was where you can kind of put meaning into it as much as you want, and I don't know how much connectivity there is between it, but really glad I finally got to play one of these games, because the only other one I've checked out is the like demo for the one on Switch. So I played that for like a few minutes, but it's really cool. So everyone check that out. And then the weird curveball that they showed off for the Game Boy Advance in the Direct was Kururin, which is a game I had never heard of before. But it's just like this weird kind of 2D puzzle game where you're essentially controlling like this rod that's spinning around, and you're just going through these levels, and it's almost like Operation sort of thing that you can't hit the wall of anything. But since you have this weird spinning rod, you have to like try and just snake it through these corridors and stuff, and then you'll hit a spring and it'll spin you back the other way. Very, once again, bizarre game. The story is very strange, but just like a very addictive and simple gameplay loop that I really enjoy. And it's funny, I was looking at just like the history of this studio, because it's like one of their first games, and now they make like DNF Duel and these other like 2D like hardcore fighting games, and it's just so interesting to see the roots of this studio. And then the last thing I wanted to shout out, another Wario game, Wario Land 3 from the original Game Boy, because that is a handheld I never had, so I've never played any of these games, and so therefore I've never really played any of these Wario Land games. But just such an interesting take on the 2D platformer of Mario, and you know, in this game, as far as I can tell, like you don't have any lives, and you can't like take damage. Like there is enemies, but it's more just like you just get punished. So like there's like a zombie enemy, and if it hits you, like it turns Wario into like a zombie. So then you have to go find a source of light to like cure yourself, or like someone will hit you with fire, and then you just like for literally like 20-25 seconds you're like going back and forth because you're on fire and you can't control yourself. And it's like instead of you losing and having to restart the level, like that's how they punish you for getting hit and stuff. But yeah, just really strange design. Like it's not just a simple going from left to right platformer like you'd expect from Mario. And I thought, especially for like the Game Boy era, I thought it was a pretty interesting design. And once again, it's very weird just because of the Wario aspect of it. He's a bizarre character. So really enjoyed playing some of those games, and I can't wait for them to add more. They showed off a bunch of ones that are coming later on. You know, like even the Game Boy Advance has like 6 games on there right now. It's not very much, but I've still spent like multiple hours just checking those things out. So I was so happy with those additions there.
Yeah, I just think they're really cool that you can do that. The lack of separation of system like consoles versus these type of handheld games, because obviously in the past you might not see some of those, but like especially you don't even have to, because the Switch is technically is a console, but it's great because it does double as like a massive Game Boy. You know, like it's the most high tech Game Boy you could get. So I love what they're doing with the Switch. It's so funny how far we've come a long way. When I was kind of like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I also just like, I'm so happy with what they're doing for the Switch for the most part. I'm wondering what they will do next, and I hope they don't really rush to whatever they do next. You know, I hope they just ride this out, especially because the Switch is just still selling. Like, I'd be down if they just for another 5 years just kept making additions, because it's not like the Switch sales are slowing down. Like, there's more families that
it just crossed the PS4 and is now the third best-selling console of all time. And Nintendo just like posted some financials recently, and they're like, yeah, in this next quarter we expect to sell like another 18 million consoles or something like that. It's like, what the fuck? How do you do that? Do you think the Switch is gonna crest the PS2 or the, I guess the Wii? Is it the Wii and PS2 are the only?
Yeah, PS2.
Or no, it's already past the Wii, so it's just PS2 and like the DS. I think are the only consoles that are above
it
it
past
now.
the Wii? I thought the Wii had the #1 crown. I thought.
I think it beat it a little bit ago. Let me see.
Okay, well, I thought it was they had Wii and PS2 because I remember PS2 such a beast back in the day. But yeah, I'll wait till you get the stats there. The DS, no, if that's #1, I don't think like I'll take out the handhelds because I think those are a little bit different. They were cheaper and stuff like that too. So when I'm always talking the console race, like technically, of course, they still sold well the handhelds and they still deserve their credit. But I look at it more like just the console versus console. I know this is a mix, but the Game Boy also wasn't a $300, $400 item. But so what was it?
Yeah, the Wii 101 million, the Switch is at 114, so it crossed it. I remember that from a bit ago, but yeah, they're already well 10 million past it. DS is at 154, so it'd have to go at another 40 million ish. I guess the tricky thing is like if Nintendo just does the simple thing and does a Switch 2 or like a Switch Pro, like do those sales get cumulative in there? In which case, like I think there's no doubt in my mind that it'll cross the DS, and let me see what the PS2's.
So PS2 is #1.
It's 158 million there.
Yeah,
for PS2.
I think 3 is where it's gonna stop. Like, you're right if there's another like sort of addition, but I could see it settling at like it's tough because it keeps going.
Tears of the Kingdom, if they do Mario Odyssey 2, Metroid Prime 4, like they still have some heavy hitters. Like
Mario
there's
Baseball
never really
2.
been a new Donkey Kong game. They got to do Sluggers because they're running out of sports games.
Have you heard that rumor that they're actually doing Sluggers? That's been going around. I tagged Kirkland on Twitter because I'm like, oh man, I hope, because I still want to, I've still never beat them, but this last one we did for the stream was so close. But I also just never want to set up or play the Wii ever again. So I'll pay the $70 for the stream just to play this. But yeah, I think DS. I don't think PS2. I think PS2, barring like you said, maybe some addition that kind of counts, like a 0.5 or a Pro, then maybe. But PS2 is just such a beast back in the day. I could, because it's 101 right now. I could see it settling somewhere between like the 135, 140 marks, getting close to that DS.
Damn. Yeah, that'll be crazy. We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
But how about with that? We'll take our first break and we'll get back and we'll switch it from Nintendo over to PlayStation. Okay, we are back. So there's speaking of rumors, another rumor that's been going around from seems like pretty reputable sources, and like not just one source, but like one source kind of brought this up, and then another source is like, yeah, I think I've heard this too, is that The Last of Us Part 3 is in development specifically at Naughty Dog, to be clear, right? This is not like, okay, someone else is taking a crack at it kind of thing. So I guess just a quick setup for this is that I think Neil Druckmann was like, yeah, if I have an idea, I'll do another Last of Us game, which is a very vague statement. Yeah. On the other side of the coin, they have said recently that they're done with Uncharted, not for the rest of time, but like for now, we are done with Uncharted. And I kind of expect that too with the 4 games. I think they're in a pretty good spot to just leave that one where it is for now.
And that DLC kind of story, I can't remember what it was, but it was the two main characters got like a mini DLC, like Miles type of game where it was like, oh, these two are on an adventure, and it was that type of bite.
I didn't even know that. That's crazy. I guess I'm pretty checked out of Uncharted in general, but taking it back to Last of Us, what do you think of the prospect of a third game, as you are a big fan of the series now and the TV show?
Yeah, it's interesting because I never thought like never, but it's just the fact that we've heard these conversations, and I think it's just the fact that it's the old example of when there's smoke, there's fire, and I feel like the past 6 months it keeps coming up from different people. That's the thing. It's not just like one person constantly hitting it, and you can be like, okay, if they're right, they got all the money, but if they're wrong, it's just this one person saying it. But it's like multiple different scoopers, and now it just kind of keeps getting, and probably because the show, people are digging around a bit more, people are talking and stuff, and like I said, I thought it could happen, but I remember after part 2, Druckmann sounded like the same when he talks about Uncharted now, he seemed pretty like, I don't think there's any part 3. Like, I feel like part 2 was a closing of the door. Now with this world, you could even do a anthology type, like other things, like you could do like it could be a Last of Us part 3, but not really following some of the main characters. I don't think that would necessarily be it, because I feel like the characters are kind of the heart of the show, and plus you're kind of doing that already, I would imagine, with that multiplayer game that's coming out that we don't know about. We don't know if there's a story aspect, what it is. I'm very excited to see that, because like I love Last of Us, and I even like and get past the gameplay, but I know multiple people bring up the gameplay, so I wonder, do people go to that to play a multiplayer Last of Us game? That's why I think, knowing him and the team, I feel like there will be a hook. I feel like it won't just be like you and a bunch of people shooting clickers. Like I don't think Last of Us is made for that type of game. But a part 3, sure, I think there is story potential for some characters. Other characters, I think you could bookend and say, hey, we don't need to do anymore. I know everyone jokes that the theory is they're making more just because the show is successful now, and but like obviously these rumors have been before the show came out, and you can't just, oh, the show did well, let's start working on it. I guess you could, but I don't think so in this aspect. So I do believe it. I know that report was like it was looking for a late PS5, maybe PS6 type of air and stuff like that, which like I could believe at that point, and I think it'll be a hype showcase or game awards or whatever when we get that trailer, and there'll be something, you'll hear those guitar strings, like, oh, like I'll get excited. So I'm open to the idea. It's just one of those things that's kind of like we people joke about with the Toy Story thing. It's like, hey, like once you got that ending, it's hard to, once you go back, to kind of open that box up. And I guess maybe I'm wrong, because I guess there's also tons of people that feel like it wasn't a good ending because they didn't like the game, right? I guess it's just majority of people in my circles are the more positive on Last of Us. It's just even me personally, I feel like you kind of checked all the boxes. You don't need to open up another one, but I guess they might be doing it, and sure, why not? We'll see. I don't. I'm very curious to see, because I'm very curious. There's two sides. One, of what this game would sell like after the second one, when it was such a mixed, reception, but at the same time, was that just mixed from a very loud vocal group that just really dislikes some choices? And two, does that not even matter, because is there more people that jump on board because the show? Like, I know not everybody that's watching the show is picking up Last of Us play, but there's a few people that never have that thought, oh, I might, or they'll watch Last of Us season 1, season 2, and let's say that game comes out and it's kind of matching with the time, they might want to get caught up. So I'm very interested, but I think the Last of Us show is showing that this is a brand now, so I think even 3, despite the controversy last game, would do well for them. So
yeah, I think you brought up there of some of the negativity around the second game. One, I think when we really think back on it, I feel like that part of that was because of those leaks. I know that was a big deal with the game, where there was just spoilers all over the place. Even I saw just screenshots of dead characters and stuff like this, and I'm not even tuned into that stuff, but it was just everywhere. And I think in large part that threw a lot of people off. I can't believe I avoided
it. I really can't believe I didn't know a single thing. That is kind of crazy. Yeah. I
mean, I guess maybe some of those came out.
You're more gaming circles than me too, so that's probably why. But
yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I mean, so that was part of it, where people were seeing like big spoilers of big plot points in the game, and not having the context around it, and maybe that soured their experience. And to some extent, you can't blame people. You can blame the people who were spreading it like wildfire and the people who leaked it in general. But I also know that like, I'm sure that was part of Neil Druckmann and his statement of like, I don't really want to do more Last of Us right now. I can think that was a pretty rocky finish, and I think there was a ton of crunch and stuff at the studio. So just like not a nice race to the finish line. So maybe now, not just the TV show, but there being more time in between it now is like, okay, in retrospect, we're pretty happy with that thing. And I think the sales have just been trucking along, and that thing's still doing great, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I also, I could see that just the not that this is a knee-jerk reaction to the show being good, but even, or I guess received well, but I think maybe they've known it's good for a while, obviously producing this thing. They probably had a pretty good idea and stuff like that. And I'm sure that kind of thing, like, just gets someone inspired, to get someone like Neil Druckmann ready, like, oh, in doing this process, I've come up with so many more ideas for other things that could be done. And, one thing that we have to factor in is like how long it takes to make a AAA game of that caliber, especially when you are a Last of Us that is known for like pushing the boundaries in terms of mocap tech, and even just like randomly like rope tech in Last of Us 2. There's all this stuff. It was really pushing the boundaries, and it's going to take a long time for that game to get made. So you got to think about that in two ways. Like, one is like, what is the studio going to work on next? But also, if they do want to keep this show going, and I'm sure if you're, producing, directing one of the just highest, best received shows of the last few years, you probably want to keep that going. And so if you want the third game to be out before you do a third season, you got to fucking get going. Like, I don't know how that timing works out, where even where we're at right now, like production cycles, probably makes more sense for them to get to the third season, assuming it would follow the game structure, unless Last of Us Part 2 is split into multiple seasons.
Yeah,
then they got to get going on that thing, right?
I honestly, because the way some of these big shows work nowadays, like Rings of Power, The Boys, what's the other one, House of Dragons, there's 2 years between seasons now. It's not like when we were watching shows where it's every year. So I literally could see that this show ends this year, right? We're in 2023. We might not get season 2 till 2025, and I really do think they will split that up in the two, because I think there's just enough story to do that. Okay. And that could take you to like 2026, 2027. So if you look at that now, that's like a 4 to 5 year gap and stuff like that. So if you got that going while the game's going on, that could be perfect. It could be great timing. But like I said, I don't know. They literally could do two, like, because it's still 9 hours and it's a lot. But I just think with, people know that lots of new characters get introduced in part 2. And I think that alone can kind of carry a season or half a season and stuff. So I think we got this for a couple more years, just because, and even then, I don't know if there's some stuff they're going to have to modify. I think there might even be an idea that they might want to wait to like age Bella Ramsey up a little bit, because from part 1 to part 2, she does age, right? And it might even be that of like, hey, people are going to be doing stuff, filming stuff. And it's not that we can't wait or it's not like it's a bad thing to wait, because it's not like Stranger Things or It, where it's all these kids are getting old. It's like you want Bella Ramsey to get old, because in part 2, there's a time jump where she is like a more adult and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I wonder how much like an HBO care about that as much as like, let's just get this show out there that is doing mad numbers for us. And
it's probably more that
like the amount of people I've talked to who are just the complete non-gamers who are absolutely loving this thing. Like, obviously the numbers, it's all over the place. It's not just gamers flocking to this thing. It's like, oh, we got a cool, well done adaptation. It's everyone. So it's I feel like that's part of it.
Yeah, it's just, and like, again, that's great for the video game, because like I said, I think that just shows two things. One, as far as like people that don't play video games, it's like the book thing of like, oh, this is based on a video game. Like, because I feel like everything's subjective, but majority of our video game adaptations have not been the greatest, and this is what we're waiting for, right? Like we've always said, like this to me is this is the Iron Man of people. Watch Iron Man 2008, we're like, oh, this is based off a comic book. I really like this. Like this isn't like too kiddie and stuff. That's something this, and even then, with it being a zombie show, I've been very surprised people were even open to that, because I just thought, oh, are people kind of done with zombies at this point? So if anything, it's just great for Naughty Dog going in the future. It sucks that Uncharted did not get the same level of acclaim, which was like that's one of their second biggest games and stuff. And I was kind of, it's not that I'm bummed out, because like I said, I'm happy with Last of Us 2. I was kind of looking forward to seeing what Neil Druckmann was going to do next as like a new IP, and I know Naughty Dog might do that, but if Last of Us 3 is happening, I feel like he's not a part of anything new, because I feel like he's going to want to be completely hands-on with that. So that's a little disappointing for me. I was looking forward to what could be next. So, okay, Uncharted's done, Last of Us, what's next? But I don't think it's a what's next. I think it's and then.
Well, factor that in with like if we get, well, season 2 is already confirmed, right? They said that's happening. Who knows what happens from there? But you have to assume that he's going to be very involved in that, the development of that. He's maybe going to be directing one or more episodes, writing and producing all that stuff. Like, I don't. How do you split your time between making a huge HBO show and making the biggest budget? Like one of the biggest budget games at the same time. Like I don't even know how that would squares out for like one man's time.
And so obviously
if he's all in the world of Last of Us, maybe that makes it easier in a way. But like, yeah, that's a tricky thing to balance out too. And we even saw that, a lot of the word of why they made Last of Us Part 1, why they did that remake is just because the people at that studio just didn't really have a project to work on. They didn't have something in the pipe, and I guarantee you part of that is because Neil was off making a TV show, and he's like the guy whose name is so big that they want to make sure that he's the one directing the next project, not like some other studios that sometimes trade off whoever the creative director is of this project. But you guarantee that they're, the next big project, they want him to be at the helm of it.
And my last question, it's like about this, but not exactly about this. Do you think we see that multiplayer Last of Us game this year? And I mean, like a fall release or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I think that is very, very possible.
Just would be smart with the hype they got going on right now to capitalize on that. I could still see it, I guess, being early next year too, but I feel like I'm very curious when we start getting reveals. Maybe that's even the Summer Games Fest coming up and stuff like that. I'm very curious to start getting our eyes on that.
Yeah, how much time do you think they want, specifically between the release of The Last of Us Part 1, the remake, and the Factions 2 is what I'll call it for now. Right. Like,
when does the remake have a date right now?
Well, that came out in last September, right? Part 1, the remake.
Oh, did it just come out to PC or still coming to PC? Is that what I'm in?
I think the PC port just got delayed by a couple months or something. But like, I don't know, do they want to piecemeal that more? Like maybe even Factions is getting close to being done, but they're like, you know what, we don't want it less than 12 months, maybe even less than 24 months. Like they want to like just wait on that. I guess they could do that in theory, like let that keep cooking while the rest of the studio is working on part 3, which I guess the question is like, how far is that? Is that still in like pre-production when it's Neil and the team writing?
I feel like it's pre from what we've heard,
ready, or are they working on like actual level design and tech and all this stuff yet? I mean, they're definitely not the actors in the booths or anything like that. We're definitely not that far along.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's like a little further than pre, and I guess you're right. I guess it all depends on how that game is selling, but if the show's out right now, I'm sure it gives a nice little bump and exposure, and the PC version still has to come out. So even if we don't get a release, then I'll say we'll at least see something of it this year, like a teaser or some sort of reveal, because I think that's a smart.
It's pretty hot right now, as we like to say. Yeah. Okay, that was a great conversation on that. Even though the rumor is very tiny, but that gave us a lot to work with. And once again, go check out our Last of Us weekly reviews of the TV show. And also, I mean, just to speak on how relevant Last of Us is, we re-released the Last of Us Part 2 review that Travis did into the feeds again, just because it had expired at this point. And just to be, behind the fourth wall here, that was the biggest Sidequest episode of the last month here. So obviously people are interested in this thing. People want a whole lot more of it. So it's good timing for them to drop even if it's a trailer and the game it doesn't have a release date, but just show something more. Because when we saw it at last year's Summer Game Fest, it was just like a screenshot, or not even a screenshot, it was concept art, right?
Yeah, it was.
And then the actors came up, so they need to show some gameplay. I think so, I guess they could even get away with a CGI cutscene that has nothing to do with it. They could get away with it. I don't want that. I want to see that. I think
the only way they get away with it is if they show a character that's been in the series before, and they're like, "In this character, you can play as them," and then everyone's like, "Oh my god!" Even if it's a prequel game, it's like, "Oh my goodness!"
They get Bella Ramsey to come up and do the announcement or something like that. I could see them doing something like that.
They love rolling those actors out there.
Well, watch them do like something where there's like a setting you can turn on where you can like switch the voice actors out. You can like switch it to Bella.
Oh,
that'd be very expensive for them to do. But I could see them doing something like that. They got the money for it. Closing out the Sony PlayStation discussion, I wanted to shout this out, which is that when they announced the PS5, they said it's coming with the PlayStation Plus collection, which was kind of an add-on to the PlayStation Plus service, which added a bunch of games. I'll just rifle off a few here. Batman Arkham Knight, Battlefield 1, Bloodborne, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Crash Bandicoot, Days Gone, Detroit, Fallout 4, God of War 2018, Infamous Second Son, Persona 5, Last Guardian, Uncharted 4. You get the idea. Very big, huge first party and like very closely tied to Sony PlayStation third party games. There's about 20 games or so that they had in this collection. So if you were subscribed to PlayStation Plus, you'd essentially have free access to all these things. They wouldn't cycle in on like a monthly basis. It's separate from that service. It was just like, hey, you get a PS5, here are a bunch of games you can play kind of day one. And they mentioned, they announced, I guess, that they are just they're pulling this on May 9th is when they're getting rid of this. So I thought it was interesting, and also, I mean, I guess the timing works in the sense that the PlayStation 5s are easier to find now. They're not as scarce. You can just, I think I've even walked in Walmart a couple times and they just have them in the box there. So they just have them at stores. You can pretty easily get one now. So maybe it makes sense.
Just in those dollar DVD bin boxes.
Just like thrown in there.
5 hanging out.
It's all ripped up. So from that perspective, it makes sense. And part of these not all these are first party, so naturally the deals on this is not going to last forever. But a lot of these in here, the God of Wars, the Uncharted's of the world are first party, but they're pulling this. So it's unfortunate, but for me, it's also a bit of a kick in the pants because I've been, getting a PS5 at some point because I know I got to get it for Spider-Man 2, DS2, other games. So this is honestly to me a bit of a push to get it before it closes on May 9th so I can pick up these games because I have a few of these, but there's also quite a few in here that I don't own, and it would be nice to just essentially have those as a free add-on that you can play as long as you continue to subscribe to PlayStation Plus. So I don't know if there's much to say on that, but Travis, and I guess a PSA, make sure you download or redeem those if you haven't yet.
Yeah, because I got Xbox Live and PlayStation, whatever it's called. Like, what is the official online? Just PlayStation Online? Is that what?
Well, there's PlayStation Plus, and then there's the 3 tiers, right?
Yeah,
so
I got just the Plus. I don't
Premium,
need the
Essential, some other tier. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't need the tiers and stuff like that. Terrible system that they botched, in my opinion.
A little confusing.
I will do that because there's a few of them that I still maybe like a Days Gone one day want to get there, so I will go download and do that. But because I that's not so much of a worry for me because I'll have PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live till the day I die or don't have consoles and that won't happen. So just because like especially Emily and I, whenever we do Call of Duty, like we share the consoles and stuff like that. I use Games Pass, I use PlayStation Plus, which is this month's free games, Evil Dead. So that's the thing where I'm excited to get that because I didn't plop down money. So yeah, I will do that. I think Days Gone, and I don't know what else because I feel like most of the stuff you listed on there is stuff that I've already played, had, or don't have interest in. Like Last Guardian, I'm never gonna touch. So I don't need to take up any room on my thing. So
I am looking at this. I'm trying to pick out like what would be a good Travis game, but I think you've pretty much played them all.
Yeah.
Or you've played all the Infamous games, right? Or at least
Never touched them.
Well, there you go. Maybe Second
downloaded.
Son would
No,
be
I
a
got
good
to
one
because
too.
they do a lot of them on PlayStation Plus before. Like they're
some of them have
stuff.
appeared there as well. So there's a bit of crossover.
No,
so,
I
guess
Infamous. I tried. I don't know. Do you remember Prototype on the Xbox? That was not the same, but they tried. So because that was in the day and age where it was just after Arkham, we were getting some superhero games, but they were pretty much all shit. And that's where it's like, okay, well at least these other ones might be good. And apparently Infamous is great. And one day I'll get to it. It's on the bucket list. But I'll get Days Gone. One day, I always say I'll try that game. One day I will plug it in and see what it's all about,
Hey, it's a good time with all the zombie stuff going on. Maybe a good time to go check it out. But yeah, remember, go redeem those games, everyone. If you are on PlayStation Plus, it's probably worth subscribing for 1 month to redeem them.
100%.
Just so you have access to them in the future. That's a huge value worth of games. So yeah, shout outs to that. And then let's talk about Wolverine here. So there's more. There was another, not a leak, but Jeff Grubb, he just knows everything about every single thing ever.
Yeah, he sure come up the past couple of years to just being like, I don't know where he worked before, but yeah, he does a good job at meeting people at events and sweet talking them in the best ways, I'll say. So good on him.
So he released some information that he knows about the Wolverine game from Insomniac. So here, I'm just going to throw out all these details, and then we can break it all down. Okay. But he said that the game is definitely going to be M-rated. He said that for whatever this is worth, he said they are trying hard to differentiate it from the Fox universe of like Wolverine and that kind of thing. They're trying to not have any sort of ties with that energy, which was a very funny statement to make.
Yeah.
He said this is very potentially pre-X-Men. So don't expect a lot of cameos in that way. Said it could be out as early as fall 2024. And then this is maybe the nebulous thing that we can kind of break down what exactly this means. But he said it's not a fully open world experience. So think about that wording. But yeah, just hearing some of this stuff, good, bad. What do you think about this? Just overall impressions.
As far as like a player, completely good. I think it's all good stuff. M-rated, sure, that's great. I think before X-Men's very smart because I don't think Insomniac's ever gonna do that. They're never gonna do an X-Men game. So why even put that idea? Not even an idea, but some people be like, oh, if you see him at the mansion, maybe it's this, or people might go, oh, this spin-off. Just make it completely by himself. You don't have to worry about, hey, where's XYZ character? You don't even have to tell that story. There's tons of story about Logan alone, and the good thing is there's tons of story about Logan alone, and maybe he's with the X-Men. All you gotta do is take the X-Men out, and he's alone. Like you just take the crux of that story. Like go make him go to Alaska and Canada, and maybe bumps into a little tribe there. Go check out our X-Men retrospective. Like there's tons of things you can do with him, and I love a Wolverine Canada-based game. I think S-Bubs in our Discord is the one that hit the nail on the head, that he took it as like a Jedi Fallen Order type of when they said open world, but not really. I was like, oh, that's perfect. So ever since I heard him say that, I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I'm envisioning of this game is. The level is open, but it's not a like Spider-Man going from place to place. And then the X-Men link thing, I don't know why that is, because it's just they talk about it. It's like every movie was awful, which is weird. And they talk about like I feel like not anybody in the world, like even the most mainstream people, looked at the Spider-Man game and was like, "Is this Tom Holland? Is this Tobey Maguire?" Like I think everyone took it for its own thing. So I don't think people are gonna look at this. I don't know if they're worried because Hugh Jackman's back and they're doing more X-Men stuff with him. If they're worried, people are gonna think, "Oh, it's a tie-in game," but I really don't think so. I think even the most general audience people nowadays understand these are separate commodities, unless it's like, oh, Hugh Jackman, his voice. Like, if this was a time in the game, they'd have Hugh Jackman on stage to talk about. They won't, right? So, and the M-rated thing is, I go, oh, when I hear that, I'm excited. But I hear that, I go, oh, for sales. But I'm like, there's thousands of, or there are thousands, but at least hundreds, God of War. We just talked about Last of Us, games that are M-rated and do very, very well. It's just strange hearing it for a Marvel game because, I'm sure they want that to be 4 quadrants and sell as many copies, but I really respect them going for that. So far, everything sounds about right. The fall 2024 sounds great. I don't know if it's there, but this is us just hearing piecemeal information. Maybe we could see something and go, oh, it is actually quite far along. So, and even then, I don't think you even need to, because that'll be exactly a year after Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man will probably still be selling good enough at that point. But hey, if it's there, perfect. That sounds good to me. And I know there was another, I don't know if it was Grubb that said this or another person that piggybacked off this that heard that there might even be like a Wolverine cameo in Spider-Man, which I think that's also smart, even though they're not going to do anything, something there. So this all sounds good and it all sounds believable. It's coming from Grubb, so most of the stuff is pretty accurate, but he didn't say anything that was like, oh, that doesn't track, except for the differentiating between the universes, because I just thought no one's gonna.
I'd have to re-listen to the. I think it was on Game Mess Morning is the show that he does, but it's unclear. I have to go back and listen if that was something that he heard and he was kind of regurgitating that quote, or if that was just like from the info he heard, that was the vibe he had. Separate
fair.
from Insomniac. So I'd have to go back and get the context of exactly that.
But like, did anyone see those claws open on that day on that showcase to be like, man, I wonder if this is Hugh Jackman? It's just such a strange thing. If someone did feed him that information, like, why did he need to be fed that information? Like, I heard no one ask, is this connected to the movies? I think everyone got it. But
yeah, it's kind of a weird little add-on for the rest of this info. Yeah. When you mentioned that cameo thing, like, do you mean like a post-credit scene, or would he be a character that is, even though his game is going to take place way before Spider-Man was even born, that he's still, I mean, he's Wolverine, he survives, whatever. He would just be bumping around New York or something. Like, what's that? What do you take by that?
Yeah, I think a cameo would be, because you could even make it that even if because we don't know when this timeline in the game is, right? Because he is way before Spider-Man. I think it's smart to put it further away. But the good thing is you could still get him in our present day in Spider-Man, and he'd still not even be part of the X-Men, be in some mission stuff.
Enough.
And it was just a cameo, so that could literally mean.
I don't think there's any X-Men name drops either in Spider-Man, right?
I don't think there is. No.
I know there's like Doctor Strange, Matt Murdock, and stuff, but those are more New York-based things. Can't really recall any X-Men specific things.
And plus, literally, a cameo could be like a wanted poster of James Hallett or Logan. Like it could just be like that too. So it was very unspecific. Just like, oh,
it could be men with claws, spotted in a bar like
fighting.
She-Hulk.
Yeah, exactly. That's gonna be the go-to. But I think that's fun, unless it's like an actual mission. If he's part of the story, then that's cool. But I don't think that's also needed as well. I think I'm actually kind of fine with them being completely separate, and I don't need them to really interact at all because I don't think it's going to lead to anything again. You know, I don't think we're ever getting Insomnia as Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which I would love if they said, hey, well, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 4, we're getting really different. We're going to let them make it. But
that would be like my most hyped game of all time. Honestly.
Yeah,
that would 100%. Be insane.
Just this like 10-year journey game, like every character plays the exact same way they do in their solo game.
Oh my god,
that'd be incredible. But maybe one day.
I can't believe you put that idea in my head. Now I'm not gonna.
No, and it would be like Avengers, where it'd only be like 5 to 6 of the characters. It wouldn't be like what our rosters are. But I would love one day for somebody to make some game like that and just like it be ridiculous and then it bomb.
Yeah, so for me, M-rated, that's fantastic. We talked about this recently in our cast. That was what is the best Marvel game of all time. We talked about an X-Men game where you have like battle damage, right? And that, like the more damage you take, like the more you're just reduced to a skeleton. He's like healing back on the fly. I don't know if they'll go fully that way, but I would love if there was really just graphic damage that you're taking and kind of healing through stuff. That would be super cool. But even just the classic M-rated stuff of ripping up enemies and blood and knocking heads off and stuff like that, like that fits for Wolverine, and I like it as kind of a side piece to what Spider-Man is. To have that for Wolverine, I think is a good pairing for Insomniac to get to do the best of both worlds in that way. The pre-X-Men part of it, I'm totally okay with that. I didn't really expect this to be an X-Men related story, but I thought maybe it could be, Wolverine's journey, and we see a couple other X-Men characters. Not that I thought we'd play as any. So I don't think this hurts my excitement or anything like that, but I love X-Men, so I would have been down to see. I mean, I'm sure we'll see, like X-Men villains and stuff like that. Characters that are established.
Sabretooth is going to be all over this game,
We just won't be going to the X-Mansion at any point. And then, I think, the biggest question for me, well, first of all, the release date, that sounds totally fair. Insomniac has an insane track record. They are the one AAA studio, other than like Obsidian, they're just cranking out games like crazy. Their production levels are insane. So that totally sounds fair to me without considering Spider-Man's supposed to be this fall, 1 year away. Wolverine, sure, why not? Insomniac can do it if anyone can. But yeah, the open world, or the not fully open world part of it, I'm really curious what that means, because it could be the Jedi Fallen Order thing where it is sort of a Metroidvania style where you have this larger level, and as you're getting upgrades or whatnot, you're like breaking out different areas of it, and you're maybe backtracking, going through and stuff like that. Or it could mean more of an Avengers-y sort of thing where it's like, okay, this level is set in New York, and it's not just some linear, like you're going down one street in New York, but you can go through different alleyways and jump on the rooftops and all this stuff, and then you're just having like a bunch of those different areas in the game, which I'd be really curious to see which way they go, right? Because if we look at Spider-Man, I guess Infamous was their game previous to, well, I guess it was what the hell was that Xbox game that they made? Sunset Overdrive, and then Infamous. Right. That's correct? That's the trajectory of Insomniac. So all those games, as far as I know,
Sunset was after Infamous was all done.
Yeah, Infamous and then Sunset and then Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
All of those have been fully open world games, right? I haven't played Sunset or Infamous, but I'm pretty sure they are.
And Ratchet and Clank somewhere in there, right? So.
Oh my God, yeah, they make so many games. So I guess that's the thing, yeah. So Ratchet and Clank might be a good one to look at in terms of the open world structure of it. In terms of like, okay, it's maybe more level designed, but like you have larger open areas, which I think the newest Ratchet and Clank had some stuff like that. So. I'll be really curious to see, right? Because that was my question: is are they going to copy the Spider-Man formula? In which case, how do you get around? That was my big question. How do you get around a huge open world as Wolverine? Obviously, you can get a car or bike.
Motorcycle for sure.
Yeah, motorcycle. But like, is that going to be fun? Is that what people want?
No.
If think about all the articles that were like, you can, you feel just like Spider-Man in this game. And you got like all the web slinging and stuff. I think to go kind of to regress into a character who's just running around or driving
you feel
a
like
motorcycle.
On his bike. Yeah,
like I'd love to drive around. I wish you could even do that in Spider-Man. Sure, why not? Like I'd love to drive around for some part of it, but yeah, I don't know how that could be as fun. So I think a smaller open world or smaller just open world areas or smaller little open sections. I am fine with the level design too, but I don't know if they want to go that way with it. So. Yeah, very curious to see more of this thing. And yeah, I think this is a case where I don't foresee us getting anything about this game until after Spider-Man. It's kind of like the Bethesda thing. Like, I don't think we're seeing anything about Elder Scrolls until Starfield's well and out, and we got even a couple DLCs for it. I think they want to stay kind of focused in that way, even though obviously they did announce Wolverine and Spider-Man. And what was the timeline on that? Was that was after Miles?
Yeah, because I think it was like a February, right? Because I think Miles came on the fall. I think it was was it 2021 or 2022? I can't remember.
Well, Miles was a launch title, right? So it's 2020.
Okay,
so yeah, it would have been
2021.
after. Yeah, it would have been 2021. We got both these. So obviously they've already gone out of order, but I don't think they'll. I guess what I'm going for is I don't think we'll see Wolverine gameplay, right? Until Spider-Man 2 is out, and you're going to have some run of DLC for it as well, I'm sure. And who knows, maybe another Miles Morales-y sort of smaller thing, like years down the line after Wolverine or something. But I think it'll be a bit before we see anything substantial that we can really chew on.
I could see one more thing before they get in the full marketing run, because obviously not that anyone's going to forget about it, but you still want to keep kind of that hype and conversation and whatnot. Even if it's like another quick cut scene where you can show like the actual full on physical appearance of Logan, because all we've seen is his hand, right? I'm not saying that people are like, well, we know what he looks like. I know, but like, even like, what's his hair? What's his face model? Even if they want to like announce an actor or something and stuff like that, we just Troy Baker, but like if whatever they want to do. So, but yeah, I think one more little thing, but then I think you're right that after Spider-Man is when they do the heavy go. I was just laughing when he said like Avengers. I'm like, man, I'm gonna wake up one morning and we're gonna have a stupid screen leak of like a picture of Logan and then like all his gear you're gonna attach to him. And I do not want that. I like Minnie look into
bone claws, adamantium claws, iron claws.
Minnie, and this is not just about Hogwarts, this is about everything. I am over gear in any game right now. I need gear to take a long break because I'm just tired of it, and I'm tired of it not really doing anything. You know, I'm just like, I don't need to see any more gear, which wouldn't happen. I don't live in Zombie, but I'd just laugh if like everyone would lose their mind. And I know I got Suicide Squad coming out this year, so I got one more like gear-based game of like, okay, let's get this stuff that doesn't really do much, but it does like all right. So
yeah, it's one of those things that like leave that for the RPGs. You know, you don't need to throw this in every game that is MMOs a third person over the shoulder kind of game. Yeah, like the same thing. I'm with you on that. You know, I'm against skill trees and they don't need to be there, which I know this game's gonna have skill trees and all that stuff too. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to add all that stuff just to bloat the experience more than what you need. Especially
when these things are just like they're making some weird, like your health's going up in your offense or defense. And like I said, if it's not a multiplayer online world game, why does this stuff matter? It really doesn't matter. Like you just like it just I don't feel between like I'm taking cosmetics out of like Hogwarts, Avengers, Gotham Knights, like every game that I've played lately with gear, it just feels like it's just there. It's just there. So I need that'll also be in Last of Us 3 as well. Wolverine, Last of Us 3, lots of gear add-on. So
yeah, I can't imagine like Last of Us having a ring that gives you like 5% more damage. That just feels so weird.
Put on this shoe. Yeah, these shoelaces. Like it'd be very like minute things.
That'd be a Naughty Dog thing where you can like pick individual socks, individual shoes, like
that's
gloves.
Gonna be the factions game. Just watch. You're gonna have gear out the in-game Hawaii shirt, you know, stuff like that.
That's amazing. With that, let's take our last ad break of the show, and then we will be talking about Marvel's Midnight Suns. Okay, we are back. So we're a couple weeks, removed from this, but it gave us some time to play through this. But yeah, as of a couple weeks ago, Marvel's Midnight Suns released the first DLC, which was, of course, Deadpool joining the game as a new hero. And then with him, obviously, there's a whole new moveset. There's going to be some new enemy types. And then I think I'm correct here that it's 3 new story missions, 3 new individual missions. And then obviously the... like that content of the new enemy types and stuff. Now that's filtered into general missions. So you're going to get that content elsewhere. It's not like you can only experience it in these 3 missions. But that's pretty much the breakdown of it. We've both played through these 3 missions now at this point. But yeah, what did you think of Deadpool as a moveset in... I don't think we really need to be too worried about the spoilers here. Maybe we'll leave one story element until the very end. I think you know what I'm talking about there. But the rest of it, we can talk pretty openly. So what did you think about Deadpool's kind of just general play style? And I guess also just the performance and the look and all that stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, well, because I wasn't like you, I hadn't got the DLC right away, so I had to get the season's pass, and man, just like pretty much the price of another game. But luckily, it got me more Midnight Suns. So I give Deadpool a thumbs up. I don't think he is. I think luckily there's not any characters that I actively dislike playing. I still like them. They still have some good things about them. And I still probably have maybe a few more things to unlock, maybe a few other cards with him. So maybe because I feel like there's some characters where there's some cards I unlock and that changes the complete dynamic of that character and they jump up some spots. And I think that I don't know if we will, but I think at the end of this we should try and do some sort, even if it's a mini ranking of who we think like our favorite characters and whatnot, even if they're like tiered and stuff, because lots of good variety. So it's tough to live up, especially because too I wasn't that excited for Deadpool to begin with, so because I kind of just know what that character is, and I feel like that's what they did. I think they did it well, but I don't think they took any big shots with him. I think what I like the most about him is I can touch upon this bit when we do like minor story stuff, but I think I like that it has the Deadpool kind of aura about it. Like the cards, there's certain cards like the names and like the one where you get multiple cards and you have like him doing the rainbow, like all his animations very Deadpool. And I like this type of Deadpool where, yeah, it's fourth wall breaking, but it's very over the top with unicorns and rainbows and chimichangas, like it's to the nth degree. So I like all that stuff. So I think they got the spirit of the character, so that's a good thing. So I think if you like Deadpool, you'd be happy about this. He kind of just felt like a lesser Blade in a way, you know, and that's where I was very surprised too. And maybe this was one late card, so a viewer could call me out on it, but I don't think it is. I think they would have introduced it is there was no healing aspect like Wolverine. I thought for sure
that's what his passive is when you get to level 3 friendship level with him. So they give you a couple opportunities, right, where they give you a couple more of the compliments, like as you're playing through these missions. So I guess if you dumped all those into Deadpool, you could get probably pretty close. Plus doing the hangout, you could probably get close to level 3 just off the DLC alone. But yeah, it takes a bit. Like I didn't actually unlock that. I Googled it because I was curious what his passive was.
So there you go. So, but even then, like I was expecting a bit more of the moveset, kind of like Wolverine. Now it's tough because you don't want to be an absolute clone, but like Wolverine doesn't have the knives and the guns and the rainbows and stuff. So I was expecting a lot more of the healing aspects of kind of like you kind of the same way I feel like when I need a mission with a healer, there's like there's two people I go to. It's Wolverine and it's Hunter. And like sometimes not so much Wanda, but I use her as a big protector type of character. So I can like use those special character cards. What are they called when you can have them in the mission? It's like the left bumper and you bring them up every time you can select them. It's like it's like a respawn with using the Phoenix Force and stuff like that. Like those.
Oh,
cards.
like the items? Is that what
yeah. So there's certain characters that like, okay, Wanda doesn't heal, but she goes really well with this healing cards. But I was kind of expecting Deadpool to be like another addition to Hunter and Wolverine, where I can have, okay, if I need a healer, Deadpool can swap in and out for that. And even if it's just the passive, I thought there'd be a few more cards. So I like the character. I feel like he's my highest level now because I played with him a bunch because we were going to talk about this, and just he starts high and I felt like I was just doing every mission with him. So I liked him and I like the novelty of him there, but he's not one of my, like, if we make a list, I don't think he's in the top 5, top 7 or something like that. I think he'd be lower in the bottom, but I don't think he's bad per se. And so yeah, I've always been more interested in the other DLC characters, and I think they will provide more interesting movesets. So I think this got the thumb up and it met requirements. That's all it does, which is maybe sounds disappointing because I think Midnight Suns almost with each character and aspects of this game, almost all of them have surpassed my expectations, where Deadpool just met them. So
yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you where, you know, this game is so great, and we've talked about a lot, that every character's moveset is great. Deadpool, though, is definitely my least favorite.
Yeah.
That is still a very good moveset, but it's definitely like the bottom of the barrel. I think for me, there's a few things. One, the animations are just boring. I wanted so much more. I wanted to be more playful. Like he has
fair.
The one with the rainbow is like something different, but other than that, like that one, he just like takes out his gun and like shoots and stuff. And I don't know, just compared to the visceral nature of Blade swinging his swords around, just how big Hulk's moves feel when they crash land. Like I just felt like they really didn't do much with the moveset here in terms of the animations. And it's one of those cases where every character, the more cards you unlock, the more, like when I first got Hulk too, I'm like, oh, I don't really like this moveset that much. But then as I got more and more cards, I'm like, damn, I really like this moveset. This is very cool, very unique. That happened with Deadpool, but it didn't have that big moment where with every other character, there's been like 1 or 2 cards when you get them, and it's like, whoa, this like totally changes your worldview of what the strategy should be, and then you're like changing out other cards. I haven't had that yet with Deadpool, and so I'm sure there's still maybe 3 or 4 cards that I haven't seen of his, but I put him in every mission because I was trying to get the food truck upgrade, so I was trying to like put him in as many quests as possible so that I could unlock that as quick as I could. So I'm getting a ton of cards for him, but I still haven't found anything that I totally love. I guess we should talk about his unique mechanic, which is Enfuego, which builds up when you KO enemies, specifically not when you damage them, but when you KO them. And then one of his abilities prominently makes it so that like the next KO that your teammate gets also builds this charge. And this charge just keeps going up and up. I don't know what the maximum of it is. I haven't hit that maximum. I saw that there's an achievement that they added for that. So that's something to strive for, but I haven't hit it yet. And each time you get, I think it's 2 or 3 charges, he goes up to the next level, and you get just like a damage buff for all of your abilities. And that keeps stacking. It doesn't get expelled like Hulk's ability does, but you lose it when you take damage. I forget if armor like blocks that, if it has to be like physically damage on his person.
I feel like he does block it. I feel like
I want to say, I know resist does. I don't know if armor does, but I know resist definitely doesn't. He has a skill that gives him resist, so you can kind of incentivize that as well. But that's kind of an interesting idea, right? Where you want to have characters on your team who are going to essentially, you just want people with taunt on your team with him, so they can take those shots so that he's going to get hit less, so they can build up damage. Yeah, so he's good with Cap. He's good with, I guess, Wolverine, good with Captain Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel.
But I almost feel like to use him effectively, and if you're probably going to use him at higher difficulties, you would almost need him to... You almost need to have one of those 3, which I guess isn't a bad thing. That is like a good amount of options, but generally I feel like there's so many different combos you can do with most characters, so I don't know if that feels limiting in any way. And I also was hoping that... I was wondering, where is the healing factor for this character? That's something that is so important to him. But I was almost kind of bummed when I saw that was his passive. I was hoping it'd be something more unique, more related to his Enfuego ability or something else that made him a bit more exciting. But instead it's like, oh yeah, he's just going to heal a bit. But once again, he's a character that if you're playing correctly, he's never going to get hit. You're never going to allow him to get hit. You're going to KO the enemies that's targeting him, and you're going to taunt the ones that aren't. So it's like, well, how much does that healing factor even do for you anyway? It's kind of a weird pairing. It doesn't make him feel like a stronger character. It just makes him feel like, I guess a bit more well-rounded.
If anything, but if anything, like you said, Deadpool by nature should kind of be a sponge character if they can heal, right? Like, same thing as like the healers, like not just Hunter, but Hunter, Wolverine, and Cap. I know anytime I have Cap's going to be taking a lot of the damage because he has so much block all the time. And he has that, one of my favorite moves where it's like the deal out the damage and get the block.
Like 500 block. Oh, so good.
It's so good when you get everyone to taunt you and you hit that, you do that move where, okay, every damage you do, you get for a block. So it's great. You have a bunch of enemies just take like 300 off you, but then you hit it and you get it like almost right back. So that's why I kind of thought the same thing. He'd be a sponge, but he's supposed to not be a sponge. He's supposed to build up momentum like he's Juggernaut or something, you know? So
yeah, it's a bit strange.
Yeah.
So some other things that, his upgrade, as we mentioned, is the food truck, which once you upgrade that fully, you can get a new upgrade, which essentially gives you that you can discard a card and you'll get a bonus movement and a bonus push, right, in that turn. That's a really cool upgrade. I really like that upgrade. I think I was hoping that when you actually get the food truck that you can go up to it and like interact with it, and he'll like make a little meal, like make you a little hot dog or something. So I was a bit bummed that there isn't. It's just like a static object that they dropped in the woods there. But it is cool that there is something that kind of changes the base a little bit. I really like his legendary skin. I haven't unlocked it yet because you got to get to max level, but just like the black and gold costume with the witch's hat. So I'm excited to get that one day. I'm not... once I beat the DLC, I put it down because I know we're going to get a lot more DLC packs, so I don't want to burn out on it. I want to wait till the next one comes out, and then I'll use some more Deadpool at that point.
I'll bring them along with Storm and Morbius and everything like that, you know?
But how'd you feel about the just voice acting and the jokes and I guess just overarching like the story hook and all that?
Yeah, for the food truck thing I didn't mention, I like that because I love my moves. I love the big shoulder checks one. I feel like that's a key make or break with a lot of me because
It's
I
really powerful.
yeah. So so that I liked. Yeah. Again, I liked the voice actor. I actually think most of the jokes hit for me and did well. I'm not like sitting there like belly laughing at everyone, but I'm like, okay, this feels like Deadpool. I like because there has been times where Deadpool can feel. It's such a hard line, and that is a character I would never ever want to write for because it's just like, where is that line between annoying and funny? And everyone goes, "Well, Deadpool's annoying." He is, but like, there's lines to it, and I've seen games and movies and adaptations. Well, I guess even movies with X-Men Origins where something goes wrong, but I think this was actually very well done. I liked all the interactions he had with characters. One of my favorite jokes I think of the story is when they're being talked. It's Hunter because he has no idea. He's like, "Oh, you should come back and be part of the mission." And just over the speaker, you hear all the characters like, "No, what are you doing?" Like all these people who know Deadpool are just trying to warn Hunter, and he has no idea what's gonna happen. And I like all like his outfits where like he has the pool out like everyone else, but like he always has the mask on, so he's always in. And they made him for some reason like bigger than Captain America jacked. He's huge. I don't know what happened, but so I think actually, like I said, much like the cards, the aura, the jokes, the one-liners, I think all worked. And I liked that even if it's just a few cutscenes and mini story, Midnight Suns isn't predicated on this great story, but I like that it's there because that's something that other than the Wakanda DLC. I guess I had that with the two Hawkeyes as well, but with Avengers we lost that very quickly. Now this isn't the same length of that because like they were going over months and they were bigger characters and stuff like that. But it's still fun just to have something and not just, oh, here's a character. I would play it because luckily the gameplay for Midnight Suns is so great. I would just accept, oh, here's a character with no story. Fine, but I think for the amount and then what they introduced, and I like that the DLC seems to have like its own mini arc where it seems like this story made it very realistic of, okay, this is why we're going to get to Morbius. And I don't know how we're going to get to Storm. That's the one piece where like, and Venom, I kind of see like Venom kind of fits anywhere. Storm, like, I don't really see how she interacts with the zombie hive and all, or sort of the vampire hive and all this stuff, but I liked the mini story. I liked the stuff with Blade. So no, that's again 2 thumbs up for me on the story aspect. So the character met expectations. The story was like a little above because I wasn't sure what they were gonna do. I thought they might just add a couple bosses. You got Deadpool, there you go. But and there's one through line that they might be falling, which I enjoy.
Definitely.
So
yeah, I guess I want to throw this out there too that I feel like I was just very negative on the moveset, but once again, I love this game so much that the base turn-to-turn gameplay is so engaging for me that I've still had like a great time going through all this. I was just hoping for them to push the envelope a little bit more, but like I still had a great time with it. And in terms of like Deadpool himself, he does so many jokes that naturally a lot of them don't land for me, but there's other ones that did. It did get me laughing a few times. So overall, I thought it was pretty well done, good voice acting, all that stuff. I like his dynamic with Hunter. I liked his dynamic with Blade. I thought there was some fun character interactions there between those two. So overall, I'm pretty happy with that side of it. To talk about some of the other, I guess, mechanics going on in this DLC. So the bunch of the new stuff here is with the enemy types, in which there's like these vampires have invaded New York, and now we can fight them. And they have some interesting mechanics to them. One being that they'll if you get hit, I think that's how, I forget if you hit them or if they hit you, whatever it is, they'll apply like a debuff onto some of your cards.
they hit you, yeah.
Right, yeah, and then so if you play that card, you'll take bleed on yourself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that little risk reward there, which is pretty cool. And there's these vampire sacks that will spawn enemies if you don't kill them quick enough and stuff like this. So I was really happy with the new enemy types. I actually thought those added a really good dynamic to the game, just adding more layers on there, something different, something unique. And I'm glad that they're just in the general mission rotation now. We can fight more of them because I really like the way you have to think about this fight differently and prioritize certain enemies and get the timing down of certain things. I thought was pretty cool.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned because I completely forgot about that, and that's why when I put the price tag, I'm like, okay, that's still a lot of money for these DLC characters. Luckily, I love the game, but it's like, okay, that's like, it was like 60, $70 and everything like that. It's almost like, because for us, the game is like $100, $110 by time taxes and everything, and then now this, I'm like, okay, that's almost a full just game before taxes. But
Yeah.
between you get Deadpool, you get the mini story and stuff like that, and also the enemy types. Also, we're getting the other ones, but the enemy types, that's another thing, because I feel like that was in the early days our biggest complaint for Marvel Avengers was just give us something else to fight other than like these robots or Hydra agents, right? And hopefully there will be more. I'm not expecting every character to come with 3 to 4 new or just 2 to 3 more enemy types, but like you said, the sacks were really fun. Those were like a fun puzzle of okay, how much do you want to play cards, and that's where the using the move and the shoulder checks like really came in. You want to say, okay, how many things could I take out? So I really enjoyed everything they did with the new enemy types, and that all the stuff that I kept going, I kept playing, I felt better and better about the purchase of like, okay, it's not just a character I'm paying for, I'm getting a lot more. So the enemies, another big thumbs up for me.
I think conversely to that, though, the main villain of this is Sin, who is Red Skull's like great granddaughter or granddaughter, or some relationships down the DNA tree. I thought the boss fight against her was actually pretty lackluster. Like, I feel like she didn't have any mechanic. I can't even remember if she had any sort of unique thing going on.
Super tough. Not even tough, but just like tough to kill because the timing of it, and she had lots of health. But yeah, I did not feel the same way as like Sabretooth or like Crossbones, where it's like, man, they bring an element of real danger here. So I'll give you that.
Yeah, that was a bit strange. But in terms of the missions themselves, I thought they were pretty cool. And they have a bunch of new cutscenes in here. I liked all the cutscenes and all that, so that was fun to go through. Question for you, because obviously we're both doing this after we've beaten the game already, but generally the structure of the game, the main game, and this is that you got to do a quest, and then you got to go do a general mission in between, like a main story. You got to go back and forth. So it's kind of good because then there's like, okay, literally every time you play through, you're gonna have to do this mission, the story mission, but then you can go off and pick which one you want, pick a character, pick a difficulty, pick what reward you want. But it says that for these missions too, is that in between them you have to do a general mission. Do you think if you're playing this alongside the main story that you could do main story Deadpool mission, main story Deadpool, or do you think you still are required to do generals in between all of them?
I feel like it would have to be a general buffer. I don't think you would ever go main story and Deadpool back to back. I don't think. I think there would always have to be, you go, Deadpool general, main general Deadpool, but I don't think so. It is only 3, so maybe they wouldn't care. But at the same point, I wonder how that does work. Because, it's one of these things that you unlock after you go to New York with Spider-Man, which you and I were both playing the end of the game, so we just have them and stuff like that. And that we talked about that in our Discord, where it's, okay, that's going to stop me from doing a New Game Plus anytime soon, because I don't want to have to get Morbius and be like, oh, you can't play with them right now. So my plan is just to get them all, and then at the end of the day, and plus I want to do New Game Plus anyway with the DLC characters too. Like, I know I'll have to play and unlock them. I guess that has to happen, right? Even in New Game Plus, I'd still have to unlock them through that story.
I think what I read in New Game Plus is that you keep all your characters, but their cards are gone, so you have to get the cards again. So you should have like Hulk at the beginning and the DLC characters in theory.
And that's what I would want to wait for. So I feel like you'd still have to do a general.
Yeah. I someday I will replay this game. I'd like to. I want to go to the dark side with Hunter, and the very beginning.
You had a lot of dark side cards I didn't have.
No, sorry. I want to go. What did I say? I want to go light side.
Yeah, light side. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I meant. I want to go full light side next time.
Same, the other way around. Yeah.
But then just replaying the game from the beginning with Storm and Morbius and all these characters is something I definitely want to do at some point. Who knows when that will be?
Yeah.
A couple other. Do you have anything specific about the DLC? If not, I have a couple other just notes about Midnight Suns.
Just like it's a mini spoiler people could skip by, but even then it's not that much, because who knows? Like,
the ending of it.
I feel like now, because that was our big thing of the end credits of, okay, they talked about Doom, they showed the metal arm and stuff like that, and it was okay, is this a tease for a sequel or whatnot? I feel like I'm getting the vibe that this is actually maybe an end game boss for the DLC, and that makes me very happy, because I can't remember what big website wrote some sort of article about like how the community failed Midnight Suns, because like the sales have not been been great.
That's why I'm glad we waited on this episode, because just a couple days ago the publisher Take-Two did an interview, and they're like, sales not great, not to our expectations. And that could be a thing where maybe the expectations were 10 million and they didn't get that, but the fact that the game already went on a 50% sale a month after its launch is a sign that it did not sell what they wanted. So obviously that is too bad. But right back to your point. Great that we're going to be getting some hopefully Doctor
I'm
Doom
assuming,
content
yeah.
as the final main boss. That would be really cool. That would be a great way to end this thing out. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
I hope it's just not 4 character DLCs leading to Doom, and then we'll do Doom in another one. Like I think that they have to end with it. With
That
the
would
fact
be
that,
silly, I think. That
yeah,
would
the
be
fact
quite
of
silly.
how much Deadpool's been talking about his client, stuff like that. So you know that's a nice tie on the bow. And that's when I'll probably do New Game Plus, when I'll wait a little time, and because I'll have that itching. I'll be like, when I'm like, man, I really wish there'd be a sequel, and then that's when I'll fire up the New Game Plus. But yeah, you were talking about the article, and yeah, it was a bummer, but it's not. It's not surprising because I just feel like it sucks because it's the biggest mechanic of the game, and I think it works once you play it. But unfortunately, those cards was the death of this game. I think the second those popped up for the GA people, that was like, I'm not touching this game. And for me, it's just like, and I got it because I was worrisome of it, but I was still gonna play, and that's why I'm still surprised there's still so many people that did not jump out and play. Just try it at least, But
Yeah, I think about that often. Like, were the cards the dealing blow to this thing? But then I look back at like Marvel Snap, and that game is done very well, and that is a Marvel card game. So like, I don't know.
A little different though, right? Because that's an app, you can pick it up.
It's a
play
different
couple rounds,
genre,
like free, right?
You're
it's
right.
Free,
They're
right?
Of course they're not 1-to-1, but oh man, if that truly was the reason a lot of people didn't pick it up, such a mistake, right? Because we talked about that in the review and all that. The cards. It's not what you expect, right?
No,
like, and it actually
not.
plays really great and is fantastic. So, too bad.
And the thing that worries me, because I didn't end up tweeting this out because I just get a little bit more busier nowadays. But the thing that made me most frustrated about this is not that I love the game, because that's all subjective and whatever. I love it. I could argue it's the best Marvel game. We ranked them. Go back a couple episodes. We talked about that, right? I think what worries me is between this and even then, like, you had your reasons for not getting Guardians, but you have Guardians, you have Avengers.
Yeah,
it was
a weird
like,
time for Marvel games, man.
I feel like Gotham Knights 2, I don't think that did the hottest, and I don't know how Squad's gonna do either. Like, I feel like when we started this podcast, we had a few of them, right? And I feel like after Spider-Man, we all, like, collectively, as like people that are fans of superhero genre, before Spider-Man, have been saying, hey, why aren't there more superhero games? We had this era of, even if they were the movie tines and stuff, like Game Here, Marvel Alliance, is the X-Men Legends, stuff like that. That terrible 2D fighter I showed you of X-Men in the Mansion and stuff like that, the Punisher game, right? Like, all these games, and then it's like, okay, this needs to happen, and then Marvel goes out on their own. They're not with Avalanche and Disney Infinity, and DC's trying to do some stuff. And my biggest worry is the fact that these other games, and Avengers, of course, has its own problems, but Avengers, Guardians, which the biggest thing, that same thing, right? I feel like with each of these games, there's one preview or one info that comes out and it kills it. The same thing with Guardians was, you can only play as Star-Lord. That killed it for so many people. The cards, that killed it. With, like, I think Avengers, a lot of things killed it, but like how shady they were, like, my worry is that I feel like now we're not going to have any games other than this Spider-Man solo single-player action adventure game be successful. That's all we'll get. And don't get me wrong, if that's all we're going to get, like that, Iron Man, stuff like that, which EA is making, it's like, great, I'll still take those because I do want more superhero games. But I really feel like Marvel and DC, who's ever in charge of making these decisions, is going to get scared of doing different types. And we talked about that, how, like, something like Midnight Suns is so cool, and I feel like we talked about so much, like, what if they did a version of this and a version of that? But I guess it shows, like, there's still, no matter how popular it is, there's still limitations to the superhero genre. And I guess, like, doing things like, wouldn't it be cool if we got like a Smash Marvel? It's like, that won't ever happen now, I don't think. I feel like a lot of these games that we pitch that would be like something really cool with a different genre, I feel like they're going to backpedal and be like, hey, instead of a Midnight Suns game, just do a solo Doctor Strange game in the ilk of Spider-Man, which is cool, but you know what you're going to get. You're going to get the skill tree, you're going to get a very similar layout, you're going to get a bunch of side pop-ups and icons and everything like that. And I think that might be the superhero, like, future, and that's kind of a bummer. So
yeah, I'm very curious to see the future as well, because they could take, not that this is a wrong lesson, but they could say, Marvel Snap did great, it's doing great, it's still selling, selling in the term that it's getting money.
Yeah,
like, let's pump more money into mobile games. Like, that's really not the direction I want them to go. Or what if they look at it and say, okay, these games aren't selling like we want them to, but if we just, like, cut the budget, make these like smaller budget titles, maybe they can make it have more financial sense. And we'll have to obviously see what that would look like too, in terms of like, okay, what is just like a cheaper, what is a game like Marvel? What if they go out to a Firaxis once again and they give you like half the budget that Midnight Suns has? Like, what kind of game would they piece together at that point? I'd be curious to see what we get. But I mean, Insomniac's holding the torch right now. They're keeping it alive and probably giving a lot of faith of like, okay, here's why you're getting these budgets still for these things, is because look at something like that. So hopefully Midnight Suns can climb up in with the discounted price, with maybe some of the DLC packs will get people talking. I really don't think that's the case, but maybe when the whole thing is all together and they do like, once again, that bundle, it's like a lot cheaper, and maybe some people will check it out at that point. Because I think that was what I was reading too, is that XCOM, the studio's previous efforts, like sold well, but it took a long time. Like it was kind of just a slow grind. Wasn't necessarily like a big day one hit, the talk of the town. But those games did well over the years, and not just because it was on deep sales on Steam or anything like that. It's just a slower, rate of acquiring people who are interested in that kind of thing. So we'll keep an eye on it. But in terms of Midnight Suns, they just tweeted today, and they said, come, join us again on February 16th. We're going to share some information. They had a quick video, a 6-second long video where there was a vampire, and then Venom comes down from the roof and crashes down the vampire. So it looks like, I was going to ask you at the end of this, like, okay, what do you think is timeline for this? And I just saw this tweet. So what do you think? Obviously, I'm assuming Venom is going to be our next character joining in here, and it looks like it's, of course, going to be continuing this story. But what do you think in terms of, like, is this guy coming out this month? Next month? What do you think?
16th. Well, I feel like because obviously it was different with Deadpool. He was all over the marketing before when he announced he was a DLC player, right? Like he took over the Twitter account and stuff. But I feel like once we started getting into the reign of, hey, he's coming, like, oh, we got a special announcement, and it was like with Deadpool image or whatever it was. I think it was a pretty quick turnover of getting him. So I don't know if it's for sure this month, but I would say if it's not this, it's within the first 2 weeks of March. That's what I'd say. Like I think and that's the other thing that sucks too. They're a game, like it's only 4 characters, but so far pretty good, consistent with updates. Like if we get him in February, March, that's like a couple months in between him and Deadpool, where you look at Avengers when we were just starving for content on that. It's just like they're just doing everything right, and it sucks they're not supported. So I think in the next 4.5 weeks we will be playing as Venom, and that to me makes sense. Deadpool and Venom, they're the 2 big sellers and whatnot. I feel like they're gonna maybe leave Morbius for last, because maybe the story with these vampires and stuff like that, it might just fit. But again, Storm's the one I think I want the most. Morbius could surprise, but Storm I really want that character.
I almost want to end with her, as the final character. Yeah. But at the same time, if we get her as the 3rd DLC, then you can use her throughout the 4th DLC pack. So maybe I want her sooner rather than later. But yeah, I feel like Venom, probably the easiest character for them to make, considering that the character already has a model and various moves and animations in the game. So I feel like turning that into a moveset that the player can use is probably a lot easier than making these other characters from scratch. But I'm very curious to see what he does to the Abbey, if there's a new location he is. And I'm curious to see his moveset too, because obviously you got to translate that into a player moveset that isn't as OP as a boss fight and all that. But some of his moves were really cool. So I think that's pretty much it. Any other Midnight Suns thoughts from you here today?
Just go buy the game. If you haven't, it's going to be half off. Like, just do it. It's worth it. And I also get it too. Like, the other reason I think these games aren't doing the greatest is because, like, it's just coming at a time where there's tons of games, right? There's tons of, like, just games, movies, TV, like, content is just so much right now. So I understand. I think that's another reason too why lots of people didn't pick it up, because there's X, Y, and Z coming out very soon. Like, there's many people waited till Hogwarts because that's like a time sink, So try it out. Give it a go,
Yeah, you can get it at a cheaper price. Oh, I don't know if it's currently on sale, but
it will
probably
be.
Another one's coming. But pay it full price. It's worth it.
Yeah.
But you can go back, check out our review if you want more discussion on this. And we also did a cast a couple weeks ago talking about it as well. So there you go. That's all for today. As I said, next week we are we're moving over to the Wizarding World. Talking about Hogwarts Legacy in depth. So what's that, Travis?
I have to ask, who's winning back there? Who's winning the matchup?
Well, the thing is, there's no stock count and there's no timer. So I don't actually know who's winning.
So there's no stock count. How does it like? So what is?
I just set it. It's a timed match, but then there's no. I set like the time as infinite, so they just battle forever. Because I've had it before where I set it for a 99 stock count game, and then it ended before the cast was over, so I needed to change it. So I'm gonna say Samus is probably winning because she's a better character than Roy.
See, you get in the background though, that 99 stock count, do like a mini tournament throughout the year and see who wins the background wars back there. You know,
that'd be fun.
I didn't know you could even do that in Smash. Just no stocks and.
I don't know if you can in the vanilla game, but that I have a modded memory card in there that lets you do some other stuff. So that might be one of those things. I think you could probably do it in the vanilla game.
There you go, infinite battle.
Anyway, shouts to Melee, the greatest game of all time. Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you again in just a few days. Have a good one. Bye-bye.